Hey everybody, thank you for joining me on this little blast through the past here with F-19 Stealth Fighter by Microprose. It was released in 1988, and this was one of my favorite PC games when it first came out, and I finally had a PC capable of running it. It's the successor to an earlier game called Project Stealth Fighter, by the same company for the Commodore. F-19 was pretty groundbreaking in many ways when it came out. There was nothing quite like it with the graphical fidelity and the sheer amount of gameplay included in the various missions and the regions of the world to fly around in. So I thought it would be fun to look back and see what this game was like back in the day and what made it so much fun, and I thought I would do that by creating a pilot named after a good friend of mine, Flat Out. You know, who better to be a world or a famous jet ace than the greatest flat earther in the world. So we're going to set up a new pilot here, Second Lieutenant Flat Out. And so this was your roster. You had up to 10 people you could have flying at any given time. And it would track their career, and we're going to send Flat Out on his first mission here in Libya during the Cold War. I think. I don't remember what I picked. These were just the various options that you could choose. Yes, Cold War. And we're going to have him do a strike mission. And so Cold War enemies, the point of the game was to avoid being spotted. So we're going to fly as stealthy as possible. We will take a major score hit if we blow things up we're not entitled to. In this case, we do have to destroy this headquarters camp, this terrorist camp, and then the secondary mission, we have to photograph a different camp. And all this was pretty well a new novel feature in games of the time. There was nothing like this in any PC game. It ran in EGA, 16 colors, you can see here. It still looks pretty good, but rather dated, especially by games that came out a year or two later, like its successor, F-117, and of course Wing Commander and Their Finest Hour and other games like that eventually exceeded it graphically. So we're going to load up the plane here. Now, I rarely, if ever, use the default loadout, even though that would probably be more realistic. A couple of Mavericks and a few Sidewinders will take you almost anywhere you need to go in this game. And so this is a rather anachronistic feature here, right, too, or unrealistic feature. You cannot fly a stealth fighter off of a carrier. But hey, they didn't know that at the time, and it was something of an irony that it was less than a year, not even a year after this game came out, that the Air Force finally displayed the first actual pictures of the F-117 stealth fighter. And of course it looked nothing like the game's representation here, but they didn't know that at the time. They didn't know how big it would be or the general shape. It had been, of course, a top secret project. But it did get a few things right. We're going to fly across the ocean here. We're heading down to the lower of those two flashing dots there. That's our primary target, and the one on the upper right is the secondary. The black dots are known surface-to-air missile radar locations, or missile boats, and the red dots are aircraft. The green dots are our safe landing locations. And note that it does not differentiate friend from foe aircraft. You have to make sure you're not shooting down something you shouldn't be. So one complaint I'd seen made about this game at the time was these unrealistic camera views of your targets from, you know, ridiculous distances away. And yeah, that's very true, of course, but this was a game that needs to be remembered as much as it is a quote-unquote simulation. And so there were some conceits for gameplay like that in the game. So I never held that against it, and it's for dang sure nobody at the time seemed to. So it never pretended to be a hardcore simulator like Sublogic or Microsoft's civilian flight sim product. So you notice those red and blue bars in the center. Those are the radar returns that various locations and sites are getting off of our aircraft. And so the blue ones are from aircraft, the red ones are from surface-to-air missile radars. And the lower we fly and the slower, generally the more stealthy we would be. And so we need to take that into consideration, especially in this Cold War mission, because we have to avoid being seen at all costs. If we are spotted, or if they get a radar return on us or a radar signature, then we need to blow up that site. But if we can avoid that, our score will end up being higher at the end. So there we can see the camp ahead, 80 kilometers away. And that's the camp we need to destroy. We've got those aircraft behind us now. They're far enough away they won't spot us. And you'll notice that over time, the surface-to-air radars, the SAM radars will go on and off, and you can't predict when that'll happen. It's kind of random. So you could be flying towards your target, thinking all is good, and then suddenly one of them will fire up again, and you might need to adjust your course. Because there were two different radar types modeled in the game. There were pulse radars and Doppler. And you needed to fly directly toward or away from the pulse radars to minimize your return. And you needed to fly basically perpendicular to the Doppler locations. So that made for some interesting weaving in and around various radar sites, and one of the later missions you'll kind of see that as I have to duck and weave through quite a number of them in the Central European theater. Another irritant I always found in this game was there were locations that had ground forces, and that's what's firing all these SA-14 missiles. You can see the red lines on that tactical view there. And we've just launched our Maverick at this camp. We get a nice weapon's eye view of the missile going in. We've hit it, and then the autopilot will automatically start turning us toward the next waypoint, our secondary target. You gotta love those polygon smoke clouds there. There you can see an SA-14 got a lock on us, as indicated by that flashing red eye in the corner, so we needed to drop a flare. Got a missile boat up ahead. Got quite a number of planes here. Now they're all buzzing in there to that camp that we just blew up, so we need to be extra cautious right here. We're getting pretty close to being detected by a few of these guys. And that one stung me. That one was down in the red, and That one detected me, and that second pulse right there just missed. We need to slow way, way down here and drop as low as we possibly can. It's okay to get hit once. It's even okay to get hit twice, but if you get hit more than that, and that track light starts flashing above the radar return section there, then you're in the real trouble. And we are fortunate that that missile boat is not active at the moment, because it would surely get us being that close to him. You can see that right there is that's a secret guerrilla airstrip that occasionally you will be given a mission to land at and deliver supplies to some rebel forces, but not in this case. And I think those missions actually were broken in anywhere but the Persian Gulf. I don't remember ever seeing a mission to a secret airstrip in any other theater beside the Persian Gulf. And we will see one where we drop off supplies there, but I don't need to land. So there's another of F-19's innovative features, was the ability to see the view from your enemies that you had targeted. I'm going to speed up time. We got a long way to fly through these mountains. You could hit the Shift F6 key to set the camera at the target and watch you fly past it. And Shift F5 would lock onto you pointing at the target. And there were a number of other camera views that didn't exist in any other game or flight sim at the time. And unlike the earlier game this was derived from, Project Stealth Fighter, these mountains are solid in that you will die if you hit them. You could fly right through them in Project Stealth Fighter. So we're coming up on our second camp here. We need to take a photograph of it, which means you had to be between 500 and 2,000 feet, and I believe within 4 miles or less, or 4 kilometers. And you get a note that your target was photographed up in the top corner. There's a nice flyby view of the camp. And that depiction of the stealth fighter, of course, is absolutely not what it looks like in real life. It's much more angular and wedge-shaped than this game portrayal. So here we go. We got to come in and land at Crete. Suda Bay in Crete. This game did have an ILS, an instrument landing system, and it did work. I have this set to realistic landings, which means you have to come in at a pretty gentle glide slope in order not to crash. You'll see when I put the gear down right at the end, there will be a flashing caret next to the elevation tape on the right hand side there, and if you exceed that descent rate, you'll crash. And it was much more forgiving on easy difficulty. Be a little bit of whining because I didn't put the gear down until late. As long as that little black line coming down from the elevation readout is above that little caret, you're good. And there we are. First mission done. Second Lieutenant Flatout has returned safely to base. Let's see how he did. This was also fun after the fact. You got a nice debriefing 490 points. We tally up how many aircraft and ground targets you hit, and then you get this replay of what went on during the mission. And Cold War missions were always the way to rack up the highest scores, especially on higher difficulties, because you get points just merely for being within enemy airspace. There, Second Lieutenant flat out was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross on his first mission. I mean, he's a natural. So you get this nice bar scene afterwards. If you don't earn a medal, there's fewer people. If you completely fail a mission, it's just you and the bartender. So there he is, after his first mission, 490 points. So going forward, I will, on these additional missions, we're not going to watch every moment of it from beginning to end. I'm going to ramp up the difficulty this time to full-on conventional war. And veteran opponents, that will increase our score dramatically. And this time we've got to destroy that camp again. It just keeps coming back. And then a mobile SAM unit. Yeah, I've noticed there's a distinct lack of mission variety, and I'm not sure if it's this copy from Good Old Games that's the problem, or if I just didn't fly enough of them, but it seemed like I was always in this little triangle right here. There were some tools before you headed out to help plan your mission, so you could see what you were up against. In this case, the various radar ranges. Now this was an interesting mission because, as random chance would have it, we had no Mavericks in stock. That was something during the limited and conventional wars. You would have weapon shortages and you would have to make do with something else. Either Snake Eyes or Paveways were my preferred alternate. I liked Snake Eyes because you get more of them. They aren't useful against everything, and you do have to be pretty accurate with them, but the main disadvantage, of course, is that you don't get to fire them from 30 clicks out. You have to be right on top of things. So here we go, night mission this time. About the only difference is everything is gray and black. And so, since a lot of this is going to be the same as we've already seen, I'm going to be cutting out a lot of this stuff. So we're going to skip ahead here a ways down toward the camp itself. We've got some views out the different sections of the plane. Remember, we're in a conventional war this time, so we can shoot down anything coming in at any point, and we better get on it, because that veteran quality MiG-29 has already got us locked on, or will soon. His returns are dead on now. And there he goes, he is fired. He didn't have a good lock yet. It was a pretty poor aspect shot. Are we going to get him? No, we are not. Let's one thing you had to watch out for. It may not have done everything right, but it did model sidewinders decently, at least after a few patches. So we were briefly locked on by that SA-12 coming in from the southwest. We'll get down into the down below sight range here and should be okay. Good old MiG-25 coming in. That's the fastest plane in the game by far. Capable of Mach 3, although I don't think you ever see it doing it in the game. I typically save my missiles, especially if the planes were coming in straight in, because it was generally pretty easy to shoot them down with guns. Far, far easier, of course, than it ever would be in real life, but you can rack up some pretty amazing kill counts if you just circle around until you're out of fuel, taking out planes one after the next before they can get you on radar, flying straight in. MiG-23 did have a nice variety of planes in the game, and it varied depending on which enemy quality you flew against, what kind you would run up with. MiG-23s are pretty old and outdated by this point. Those MiG-29s and Sukhoi 27s are flown by the hotshot countries. If you flew this against green opponents, the lowest difficulty level, you're generally against F-5s, MiG-21s, MiG-23s. Pretty poor quality. Alright, so we're going to skip ahead here to the camp. A little sightseeing first. We've got some oil tankers out there. This game's manual was very descriptive in what you could imagine you were seeing. There was probably a 20 or 30 page section of the manual devoted to the different theaters of war and various things you could sight see and look at. Again, so we got no Mavericks this time. We've got to fly right over this sucker. Snake Eyes are free fall. You don't have to do a dive bombing attack on them, but you do have to wait until that release bar. Meets in the middle, and you've got to fly on that diamond to make sure you're right over the center of the target. Open up the bay and hit the weapon release right now. Unfortunately, not a very good view of that. Sorry, I do a better job later. Oh, I accidentally had my gear down. Alright, so next stop is at Mobile Sam. And we'll skip ahead a ways here in just a bit. Oh, there you go. We just had a radar light up for the first time. Must have heard the explosions. You can see the smoking remains of that camp back there. That's just an old pulse radar behind us. We don't have anything to worry about from him. That SAM radar there, though, could be trouble. We're going to try taking that guy out. See right here, you are perfectly capable of taking out targets on the ground with your gun too. The gun is pretty fidgety to hit a specific target every time, but I got pretty lucky there. There's a few of these strafing runs you'll see that I don't hit at all, even though it looks like I should be. There's Mr. Mobile Sam, although it looks more like a Scud missile launcher than anything. He goes. Next up, we'll take out this air base. That'll prevent any chase planes coming after us on our way out. Snake Eyes will do a good job on them. It's always easier to take 3 Snake Eyes and do it with than 2 of the Durandals. Even though they do the same thing, the Durandals were made for runway busting, but as far as the game is concerned, the Snake Eyes do just as well. She blows. No planes coming from that airfield. Ooh, got a snooty MiG-29 taking a shot at us. Again without a lock, so he didn't get a hit. We'll deal with him. Got all these air-to-air missiles left. Might as well use some up. That'd be a waste on somebody that close. Being up that high and maneuvering around, you'll see that our visibility on radar got to be pretty high there, so those missile boats know roughly where we're at. They aren't tracking. Oh, now that one's tracking us. There, he lost us. Somebody else has got us zeroed in though. There. Well, there's an example of a run that I don't know why. Nothing blew up there. Notice when we bank, especially when we get higher in altitude, my radar visibility goes way, way up. You've got to be really careful when you time your turns if you're attempting to stay hidden. Try a snake eye on this guy. It's kind of difficult to hit something as small as the radar with them. And it missed. Alright, another MiG coming in. We'll give him an AMRAAM. That's your longest range air-to-air missile. It has a much higher success rate hitting than the Sidewinders generally, being radar guided. Get rid of this pest. Yep, boats blow up with gunfire. Nice and clean too. Another MiG coming in at AMRAAM range. Remember, in conventional war, this is all free points. That one missed. Against a MiG-23, it's embarrassing. Couple of Sidewinders left. Got a range of about 18 miles. You can sometimes get away, especially if they're closing on you, shooting them a little bit early. You definitely do not need a lock on with any of these missiles. They will go right after whatever is nearest being in front of them. It's very, very irritating in some of the air-to-air missions where you have to carefully hit a certain plane surgically, and your missiles decide to chase his wingman instead. Alright, he dodged 2 missiles, but he didn't miss that. See, I launched that Fox bat about 4 or 5 miles ahead of where it would have normally locked on, but it's still got him. are pretty squirrely to hit when they know you're around. See, I'm up at 4,000 or 5,000 feet, and how dramatically my radar visibility has increased. We don't have the mountains helping, we don't have the curvature of the earth helping, and it does model those things, believe it or not. 1988. We're going to get the heck out of Dodge because we've got just about bingo fuel and we have a carrier landing to do. I'm going to skip on ahead and we're going to ignore that MiG down there. So like I said in the beginning, either the F-19 or the F-117 would ever land on a carrier, but it is modeled in here, and you do have to be pretty careful to nail the wires right at the aft end of the ship. You are allowed a much bigger margin of descent speed in order to land and not crash. You don't have to come in as gently as you would on a runway. If you think this is hard, with this frame rate and these graphics, you should have tried it on the Commodore when you were getting about 3 frames a second and nothing but black and white outlines. Transparent outlines. That was a little hard, especially with a cheapo Atari joystick. But it felt every bit as real as any modern flight sim would. At least when you're 12 years old. And there we are. Flat out successfully pulls off another mission. Ten enemy aircraft, 6 ground installations, and 643 points. Now see, all that destruction, and our score wasn't that much higher than the last mission. That's the difference with Cold War and conventional. I think I'd do a limited war mission in this, but I never liked them because they were neither one nor the other. You got really miserable scores. you barely get any points for flying around in there, and you're still restricted on what you can shoot. Definitely busy little bees. And a silver star for heroism. Good job, flat out. And a promotion. So yeah, you would get promoted to First Louis if you had a decent couple of mission scores, and then you would get to captain after 5 missions, major after 10, lieutenant colonel at 20, I believe, and full bird colonel at 40, and then you retire at brigadier general at 99. So 99 was the most you could fly. So, next up is an air-to-air mission here in the Persian Gulf. I'm going to stop jabbering so much. You've seen and heard described pretty much what goes on. Now what happens is the scenery will change. So, hope you enjoy the rest of these and this look at Flat Out's little miniature tour of duty and career and this great old game. If you like it, it's available very, very cheaply over on goodoldgames.com, GOG. And I highly recommend it. It holds up. It's as fun today as it was back then. It's not at all a serious flight sim. Any flight sim aficionado will laugh in dismay at the lack of flight modeling and realism, but hey, it was just a fun game. So, yeah, hope you enjoy, and have a nice day, everybody. And welcome to 2021. Oh, man. I'm going to look back on this in a few years, and hopefully we've forgotten just how miserable 2020 was. So, cheers, everybody. Alright, so this next mission I send flat out to my favorite area of the game, the North Cape, up around northern Norway and northwestern Soviet Union. There were a lot of unique targets up in this region, and the radar installations and runways are just densely packed. You could get a really good score up here in a hurry in the conventional war scenario. You just got to make sure you take enough weapons along. One irritating thing that shows up in this area are the IL-76 AWACS planes, which can see you from much further away than most of the other planes and even some of the radar sites can see. But there you can see just how many SAM radar sites there are and the ranges of the radars, and it's a lot of work to weave your way through there without getting spotted. You got to stay way low, very low and slow if you get in toward the coastline. So we're going to load up with our Mavericks and get out of here. And in Cold War scenario, it's not quite as valuable as it is in conventional, and it's not quite as valuable as it is to fly in Western Europe, but you can still get a Congressional Medal of Honor here if you get a long enough mission. But it is still easier to get that highest medal in the Western European theater. So we're off, and we gotta buzz down and get to that cargo ship and photograph it by 11 o'clock. And that's the more distant target. So one thing I do here, and I don't think I've done it in the previous missions, is you'll see me adjust the waypoints. Because normally the first waypoint is midway between you and the primary target. But you can move them around wherever you'd like each waypoint to be. And so I adjust it slightly to fly me parallel to the coast further out to try to avoid some of these radar installations, because once they start picking you up, it's really irritating having all those planes vectored right on top of you when you're nowhere near the target yet. You can see the IL-76 aircraft is the one just south of me. That's the one that sends out the circular light blue pulse. That sucker can see you from a long way away, and it is vectored all those other fighters behind me, and it's keeping me pretty well pinned down. I'm not being tracked by anything yet. There we go, we got our cargo ship photographed. But these guys are so close, and I am very near to being picked up, so I'm going to have to make a very, very gentle turn in order to keep my radar signature as low as possible. Because remember, we're in a Cold War situation in this mission, so we can't just blow things up for the heck of it. If something identifies me, I've got to take it out, or you get a major reduction in score. And the minute you take one out, they're all over you. So sped up time to quadruple speed here, and this chirping you hear is when I'm too near to the ground. But even as slow as this is and as gentle as I'm turning, you can tell I'm almost getting picked up on radar. And the cargo ship right there and the track camera blew up, because that meant if you hadn't photographed it by then, you were too late. So that's how you knew you had not arrived in time. So there's that pesky AWACS, that IL-76. It looks like I've shaken most of them. Now we just need to destroy the tank farm and get the heck out of Dodge. And you definitely don't want to get anywhere near the thing, because as soon as that sucker blows up, you'll see all those planes make a U-turn and fly that direction as fast as possible. And most of the radars will light up. So we need to get out of Dodge and back toward the carrier as soon as that blows. So another great mission for First Lieutenant Flatout. Awarded the Air Force Cross for valor and heroism on a combat mission. And since this was his 5th mission flown, he gets the Overseas Short Tour ribbon. And for having a good score on 5 missions, First Lieutenant Flatout is now promoted to Captain. So good luck in your future missions, Captain. Alright, so this is the 4th and final region that you can fly in. This is the Western Europe scenario where you're flying against the Warsaw Pact in the border of West and East Germany. And in this case, it's Cold War mission. So before the Berlin Wall fell. And so we've got a fairly straightforward mission to blow up a tank farm and photograph one. Got our Mavericks loaded. We're going to take off and get out of here. And you'll notice how much more densely packed the scenery is in this area. This is where they put in a lot of assets. There's windmills and villages, and by far the biggest agglomerations of buildings in cities. And so the frame rate actually takes a pretty good hit here. I didn't try to speed it up in DosBox at all because you could get it to be unstable if you go too far. And there's a windmill coming across there. So here you can see me adjusting the waypoint. It had me flying toward those mountains if I were to fly direct, and I don't want to go over them because that would expose me too much to radar, and we want to avoid that here in this Cold War mission. So I'm going to carefully maneuver this first waypoint so that it steers me between the mountains and I can remain as low as possible. And I'll do that again in the later mission that I do where I go for the Congressional Medal of Honor. So here's how the game represents a big city. So there you go, take it for what it is. You got to remember, in 1988, this was unheard of levels of graphics in a flight sim that actually had a good frame rate. So there was a lot of technical wizardry going on in this game because it's not even 1 megabyte. I mean, you think that 1 minute of music at a decent quality takes up more storage space on disk than this entire game did. So here we are flying over I don't know what city. So enjoy. This is Western Europe. These are the Alps, supposedly. And those gray squares on the tactical map down there are the cities. Like I say, this is the most densely packed scenery area. So let's see what Flatout can do. So another great landing for Captain Flatout, and 1,049 points. And only one enemy target destroyed. See, I told you this Cold War thing was the racket where you score the most points. Look at it go up just flying around the area there. So nearly 500 points just for accomplishing the primary mission. So when you're going for a Congressional Medal of Honor, remember that. Cold War missions against veteran or elite opponents, realistic landings. Ideally, you want to do it here in Western Europe, although you can get it done in the North Cape. It may be possible against elite opponents in the Persian Gulf, but they start picking you out pretty quick, and it's hard to get a mission long enough in the Persian Gulf is the problem. That's the other factor, is the more fuel it takes for your mission, the higher the score multiplier will be. So not only do you want to be over the enemy's territory for a long time, but you also want to take a lot of fuel as well. So here we go. Conventional war in Western Europe. This is supposedly after the Warsaw Pact has invaded Western Germany. This is as hard as it gets. Still only on veteran opponents, because elite opponents, I'm sorry, they just cheat. You cannot avoid them, and it's a little bit excessive in my opinion. So we've got an air-to-air mission. I haven't done very many of those. There will be an aircraft, that AN-72 Kohler, taking off from the very easternmost portion of the map. You'll see it here in just a bit. And it's flying toward our primary target location. There you can see it on the far right of the map. It's the flickering red and black dot. And you'll see in this mission I take quite a pounding. I am not infallible by any stretch, and this mission will test Captain Flatout to the limit. There we go. Hit number 1. And it's only just begun. You can see at this point just how many aircraft there are flying around here. It's getting pretty hectic. We've got the 3 mission aircraft. We've got an IL-76 just to their east. We've got that MiG closing right on our south. And then we've got another one coming up behind us. Plus all these radars. So this is where it starts getting pretty intense. And if this was on elite opponents, I would be getting picked up by everybody at this point. So we need to start letting fly with some AMRAAMs here and clearing out some of this thicket. Now the mission planes will all stick together regardless. But it's that Kohler right there that's the mission objective. Now even though you lock onto him and you fire, if there is any aircraft closer, the AMRAAM is going to go right for it, and you'll see that happen right here. It's going to go streaking off toward that plane to the right, which is the last thing you wanted. It doesn't matter how far off to the right it is either. It's very, very difficult, and that is an annoying flaw in the program. They can be clear off the HUD and you can fire and it will still go toward them. So 3 AMRAAMs later, all 3 mission planes are gone, although technically you only have to get rid of this one. And down he goes. There's that pesky AWACS off there. And we've still got a long way to get back to the secondary objective. We don't want this MiG bothering us the whole way. Now I, in this mission, do some spectacularly bad shooting, which will come back to haunt me later. Let it be a warning when you play to be very judicious in your use of gunfire. It's about here these guys have had enough of me. That otherwise quiet radar at Cottbus, as soon as I launch this Maverick, wakes up and has fired an SA-11. And this will set in motion a chain of events that lasts pretty much the rest of the mission. I still have a lot of ammunition left. But I have now maneuvered and decoyed and jammed enough things that they all know where I am now. And so now it's about mitigation and desperation. Especially as I waste the majority of my ammunition right here. We've got missiles flying everywhere. We've got decoys here, lock-ons there. I can't shake these guys. It's looking pretty grim. And I'm now down to 26. 26 gun rounds. I have no missiles. 26 rounds. And I haven't even made it to the secondary target yet. So I got low and lucky. One radar shut down. So I was able to get past the planes. Got 2 Mavericks left. I'm going to use one right here on our secondary target. And we're going to take out that SAM radar and get the heck out of Dodge. And if all that wasn't enough, now we're over one of those hostile forces areas with SA-14s flying around. Those are little shoulder-fired infrared jobbers that don't get lucky very often, but it only takes one. So, now we gotta get home. And you can see what's chasing me down. And they are not happy. We have 7 aircraft. And they have all spotted me now. And we have SA-12s coming in now, and they are the most dangerous by far. The most dangerous surface-to-air missiles. And there we go. I've just been hit again. That's the second hit. You will never blow up in midair. That's the one good thing. You will never die just from being hit by missiles, no matter how many hit you. But you can become so damaged that the plane is unflyable. So far we've lucked out, and that hasn't happened yet. But we have, early on, had our flight surfaces damaged. That's why we're shaking like crazy. And look at this. 3 of these suckers, and we've got to make every shot count. Now down to 18 rounds. 10. 2 rounds left. We got 2 planes. We can take out one, but not both. And there's still 2 more behind them coming in. Alright. That's it. Now we've got to run like a bat out of hell for home. And everything on Earth can see us. We're wide open. Our bay doors are jammed open. We've got nothing left but chaff and a lot of dodging. Hit by another air-to-air missile. AA-10. We're 28 miles from the base. Can we make it? Come on, Captain Flat Out. You can do it. They must have either been out of ammunition. No, there goes another missile fired at us, but that one wasn't locked on. We gotta hurry and get down because they will shoot you down over friendly territory. So I'm gonna limp this sucker home. This is already nerve-wracking enough, normally. Your flight surfaces are damaged on top of it, it's even worse. We're down. We lived. We made it. It feels like that landing at the end of Hot Shots when the plane just drops straight down onto the hangar or carrier deck. So see, here we are. Conventional war, 15 planes shot down, 5 ground installations destroyed, and we still only got 672 points. That's why you go for Cold War when you want your Congressional Medal of Honor. And here's why. You can see all these radar tracks. That's what gets you. You gotta blow those suckers up if they get a radar track on you, otherwise you lose points. But we survived. That was the main thing. Got an Airman's Medal and a Purple Heart. guys, so this was my attempt to get the Congressional Medal of Honor for Flat Out. Cold War strike mission, veteran or lead opponents, realistic landings in Western Europe. To make this a guarantee, you want to make sure that the mission you're given is a long one, like this, where you have to carry extra fuel. Doesn't matter if it's a destroy or photograph mission. In this case, it's one of each. You'll get the same points regardless. In a way, it's easier, of course, to get the destruction ones because you can fire off a Maverick from 30 clicks out. But the trade-off is, of course, you get points for flying that 30 clicks if you had to take the picture. But this one will do. This is an 11,328 pound estimated mission. And anything above 11,000 pounds gives you the maximum score multiplier. So this is already looking good. All we have to do is stay as low and slow as possible because we want to spend as much time behind enemy lines as we can. And of course, being Cold War, we have to remain completely undetected. Now in this one, I'm just going to speed through it. You've already seen what Cold War missions are supposed to be like, and you've seen the terrain, so we're just going to go at 8 or 16 times speed through this. Now again, I'm going to adjust my waypoints so I can stick between these mountains. And there's that really irritating pulse radar right there that nearly gets me a couple of times. So I need to make sure I fly directly away from it. See, he was tracking me for a minute. He got close and he vectored in all those planes. But we got away before he got a good lock. So in this case, I'm going to do the secondary mission first, just because it's on the way. And since we're flying directly away from that pulse radar behind us, we should be good. So with the picture taken, now we can move on up to primary and just fire off our missile when we get there. Again, we're turning very slow, very gentle. Windmill there. See, even carrying that extra fuel, we don't have a lot of excess to fiddle around with. We got to get there directly and back. Here we go, we're in Maverick range. Gonna launch that sucker. Start heading for home and trust that it gets there. Mavericks are almost always a guarantee. So that one Doppler radar way up there got a good return on us. Gotta be sneaky getting out of here. Vectored that plane on in there. Well, they're mostly flying around the explosion, which is a good thing because that gets them off our back on the way out. So now we just have to weave through these pulse radars. You can see that one up there is getting pretty close to picking us up as we fly perpendicular to it. That was darn close. Luck is with us. We're going to come on in, and that was a very, very long flight over enemy territory. This is all at about 16 times acceleration here in the video editing. just wait and see. Boom, 1,390 points. And we did it. We got flat out his medal, because anything over 1,200 will get you your first Congressional Medal of Honor. So there you go. See, just accomplishing the primary and secondary missions would have gotten us the medal. And then we just had to fly slow and stick in there long enough. And there we go. Captain Flatout's Congressional Medal of Honor. That was the biggest medal you could get in the game, the highest medal, of course, in the United States. And normally, of course, would never be given to a pilot for a Cold War mission, but... So how do you top that? Well, you don't. The last mission I fly is just a Persian Gulf milk run to get to 10 missions, promote him to Major, and that'll be that. So I hope you enjoyed this look back in history, and thanks for watching. I might do another little quickie series about this game's successor, F-117 Nighthawk Stealth Fighter 2.0, in which it goes to full VGA graphics, a bunch of new areas to fly in, new enemies, and just an all-around better experience. But this was a fun bit of nostalgia for sure. I don't know what those friendly forces were outraged about. They did not have civilian or friendly marked on their oil tankers. How could I know?